Hey, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something I think you'll find incredibly useful, a kind of mental operating system, one that's designed for our crazy, chaotic world. It's called the Cognitive Scaffold, and it's all about giving you a framework for building clear, structured thoughts, even when, everything around you just feels like noise.
I mean, think about it. We are just absolutely bombarded with information, with noise, with complexity every single day, right? It can feel totally impossible to find a clear signal in all of that. So the big question is, how do we build a thought process that doesn't just, survive this chaos, but actually thrives in it? That's really the core question we're going to tackle today.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll set the stage by talking about the problem, trying to think clearly in this noisy world. Then we'll introduce the solution, this idea of a cognitive scaffold. From there, we'll dive deep into its 6 layers, see how it actually works with a really cool example, and finally, we'll wrap up by exploring this powerful idea that structure itself, well, it is a form of intelligence.
Okay, so first up, thinking in a noisy world. Because before we can build a better way to think, we really have to get honest about the environment we're thinking in. It's a world that's constantly throwing competing narratives, bits and pieces of data, and all kinds of emotional triggers at us. It's designed to overwhelm our ability to reason clearly. So step 1 is just admitting, hey, we need a better system.
So what's the solution? Well, this brings us to a scaffold for your mind. We're going to explore something called the Cognitive Scaffold system. Now, I want you to get the idea of a rigid set of rules or some kind of checklist out of your head. That's not what this is. Think of it more like a flexible, internalized operating system for your mind, a way to give your thoughts a stable architecture to build on. Let's dig into this definition a bit, because there are some important words here. Recursive and self-correcting, that just means it's a system that learns and gets better over time. It's built for high-density reasoning, which is a fancy way of saying it helps you handle really complex ideas without getting totally lost. But honestly, the most crucial part is right here at the end. This system is not about telling you what to think, it's a framework for how you think. I love this metaphor of a cognitive exoskeleton. It's like an external support that helps structure and strengthen your own reasoning.
And this quote really gets to the heart of it. Your scaffold is not a tool, it's the visible form of your invisible discipline. See, this isn't some external app you download. The whole point is to develop an internal discipline for structured thinking until it becomes completely second nature. An invisible habit that produces very visible clarity in your work and your life.
All right, so how does this scaffold actually work? Well, its real power lies in its architecture, which is made up of 6 interlocking layers. Once you understand each layer, you can see how a thought goes from just a vague purpose all the way to a clear, powerful idea you can share with someone else. Let's break them down.
Okay, so here are the 6 layers at a glance, and you can see they move from the most abstract, big picture stuff down to the most concrete. We start up top with meta. That's your high-level purpose. Then there's the field, the environment where your ideas live. Context helps you narrow your focus. The concept is the core logic, the seed of the idea. Content is its tangible expression. And finally, form, which is how it all gets presented to the world. So we start at the very highest level, the meta layer. Think of this as your North Star, your ultimate why. Before you even start tackling a problem, this layer forces you to ask, what is my real purpose here? What are my ethical lines in the sand? Are we trying to build something genuinely helpful, or are we just trying to win an argument? The meta layer is like the constitution for your entire thought process. It makes sure everything that follows is aligned with that core intention.
Okay, next up we have the field. Now, if meta is your internal North Star, the field is the external world. It's the ecosystem where your ideas actually have to survive and compete. This is where your internal logic meets other people's opinions, cultural trends, and new data. A good gardener doesn't just throw a seed in the ground. They study the soil, the climate, the sunlight. The field is all about understanding the environment you're thinking within.
Context is where things start to get really practical. It acts like a powerful filter. Out of all the noise and all the possibilities in the field, context asks that critical question. What is relevant right now for this specific situation? So, if your big idea, your meta, is to write a novel, the context is the specific chapter you're writing today. It sets the boundaries and turns that abstract mission into a concrete, actionable task.
And now we get to the absolute heart of the matter, the concept. This is the DNA of your idea. It's the core hypothesis, the single elegant principle that everything else is going to grow from. And let me tell you, if the concept is flawed or weak or unclear, then no amount of great content or beautiful form is going to save it. Getting this little seed right is absolutely critical.
Once you have a crystal clear concept, you can finally start to generate content. This is the tangible stuff you build from that conceptual DNA. It's the actual words on the page, the data you put in the chart, the specific arguments you make in your essay. The content is the vessel. It's the carrier that holds your core concept and makes it understandable, provable, and strong. It's your logic made visible.
And finally, we arrive at form. This is the outermost layer. It's the user interface through which your audience interacts with your entire thought structure. This could be the design of your website, the tone of your voice when you're speaking, the style of your writing. Look, you can have a brilliant concept and super robust content, but if the form is confusing or just plain unappealing, the whole idea will fail to connect. It's that final, crucial handshake with the world.
Now here's a really crucial point. This is not a one-way street, from meta all the way down to form. The system breathes. When your form interacts with the world, you get feedback, right? And that feedback doesn't just stay on the surface. It flows back up the chain, allowing you to recalibrate your context and maybe even refine your core concept. It's a living, breathing, self-correcting loop.
Okay, so that's all the theory, but what does this actually look like in practice? Let's walk through a case study from the source material. It's called The Illusion of Certainty. This is going to show us how the scaffold can transform a simple, everyday observation into a really powerful insight. So, the scenario starts with something I'm sure we've all seen. You're scrolling through your feed and you see ads for all these wellness products. You know, IV drips, brain-enhancing supplements, you name it. And they're all promising the exact same thing. Certainty, instant recovery, total control, absolute focus. Now, the easy reactive thing to do is just debate whether or not they work. But a structural thinker asks a completely different question.
And this is where the structural analysis really kicks in. So step one, you move from the phenomenon, the ads, to the underlying variables. You ask, why is there such a huge demand for certainty packaging in our culture right now? Step two, you discover and name the mechanism. You realize these products are acting as a psychological filler. They're like a patch for our collective anxiety about uncertainty. Step three, you scale up that insight. You go from the individual to the systemic. You realize this filler concept isn't just in marketing, it's everywhere. It's in politics, it's in ideology, it's what's called a structural illusion. Step four, you do a structural reversal. Instead of seeing uncertainty as the problem to be solved, you reframe coexisting with it as the solution, as the real beginning of true structural thinking. And that leads you to the fifth and final step, the core insight, where you completely redefine the entire goal.
And here is that core insight. It's that true certainty is not closure. The goal of thinking isn't to find a final, closed answer that you can lock away. No, true certainty is a dynamic process. It's about breathing. It's about engaging with the world, breathing in new information, and breathing out new structures. It's about building a relationship with complexity, not trying to escape from it.
That case study, I think, perfectly illustrates the ultimate takeaway here. In an age of just complete information overload and constant change, the ability to create and maintain a cognitive structure, that is a form of intelligence. It's not just a nice skill to have, it's a critical survival skill.
And this chart really crystallizes the two different approaches. On one side, you have illusion-based thinking. It's reactive, it's desperately seeking certainty and needs somebody else to tell it it's right. But on the other side, you've got structure-based thinking. This is proactive. It embraces ambiguity, it generates its own internal coherence, and it turns the chaos of uncertainty into a productive rhythm.
So what are the real-world benefits of thinking this way? Well, first off, a clear scaffold just filters out over 99% of dead-end cognitive paths. It's incredibly efficient. It turns crushing complexity into coherence and builds your resilience to ambiguity. But here's a really crucial one for our times. It enables high-bandwidth collaboration with AI. When your own thinking is structured, you can guide these incredibly powerful tools with so much more precision and effectiveness. And ultimately, it helps replace rigid ideology with a flexible focus on what actually works.
Let's end on this really powerful principle from the framework. The scaffold is not a cage for thoughts, but a bridge between awareness and creation. The whole point of a mental scaffold isn't to restrict you or lock you in. It's the exact opposite. It provides the stable bridge you need to travel from a high-level awareness of your purpose all the way to the act of creation, without getting lost on the journey.
And so, I'll leave you with this final question to think about. Whether we know it or not, we are all using mental structures to make sense of the world every single day. The real question is, are those structures conscious? Are they coherent? Are they actually serving us well? So take a moment and ask yourself, What invisible structures are shaping your thinking right now?